Well, it was pretty much unanimous. In fact, I don't remember reading any comments where somebody said, "Do not tell the joke." It's a clean joke, and it's an old joke. Now, I've done a lot of thinking about it since I closed off yesterday's episode. And I was debating, do I tell it or don't I? Because I said it was politically incorrect in a way. But I think maybe it would be more what you might call socially incorrect. I don't know if there's a difference, but I think there kind of might be. Anyway, before I tell this joke, and really, I think I should make it clear, I'm not telling it as a joke, more as this is what we laughed at 60, 70 years ago. Because it was about 60 years ago I heard it. Anyway, about 14 months ago, I did a two-part series on Uncle Frank's watch. And I started off episode number 1, and I mentioned how Uncle Frank had a pretty hard life. He ended up in what we used to call then as a mental institution. My grandparents couldn't cope with his situation any longer. He used to have seizures real bad. Anyway, if you want to hear about it, you can just watch Uncle Frank's Watch, Part 1. This is that watch, by the way. I cleaned it up, put a new battery in, and it's still running 14 months later. Now, so there's that. Now, I can remember seeing back in the 50s on television, Milton Berle, a very famous comedian. Mr. Television, I think they used to call him. Anyway, he would do a bit of a skit, and he used to play the part of a physically handicapped and mentally handicapped person. At least that's what I was getting out of it. And he would come on stage walking kind of funny, and okay, so there's that story. Now, the famous British comedian John Cleese, I don't know if I said his last name correct, but anyway, he's a guy from Fawlty Towers and what was that other famous one? Anyway, you know who I'm talking about. He was interviewed years after, and excuse me, and I don't know if I actually saw the interview or if I heard about the interview. But he made the comment that he had spent the last so many years trying to figure out what it was that makes people laugh. Humor has changed. What we used to laugh at back in the 50s and 60s, we don't laugh at anymore. And so I just wanted to, mention these things, because the joke that I'm going to tell, it's not really appropriate. It's sort of taking advantage of the fact that you're making a handicapped or a retarded person the brunt of the joke, and that's just not acceptable anymore. Humor has really changed. Now we tell other kinds of jokes. It has to be what I used to call a dirty joke, or an off-color joke. That seems to be the in thing now. Now, mind you, I haven't watched too many comedy shows, so I don't know. Recently, that is. So maybe humor has changed again. But when a lot of you viewers are around my age, and you will have probably noticed this yourself, that what we used to laugh at, we don't laugh at anymore. Anyway, now remember, I'm just telling this as this is what we used to laugh at 60 years ago, because it was almost exactly 60 years ago I first heard it. Okay, here it goes. There was a man went to visit a friend or relative in one of these mental institutions, and he drives in and he parks his car and goes in and has his visit, and when he comes out he finds out he's got a flat tire. So out comes the jack, out comes the spare, off comes the hubcap, and that was back when hubcaps were really hubcaps, not the useless plastic things they're putting on wheels now. And it was like a big dog's dish. And the idea was you take the hubcap off, set it on the ground, you take off the lug nuts, and you drop them in your hubcap to keep them from getting lost or dirty in the dirt. And so he did this. And he's working away trying to get the flat tire off, and he gets it off, and he realizes, well, if I roll it off to the side here, I'm going to roll it right over top of my hubcap. So he moves the hubcap sort of around behind him, and he notices that one of the residents from the institution is standing there watching him. So that's fine, it didn't really bother him. Okay, so finally he wheels the good wheel in place and tries to line up the holes on the studs, and he's working up quite a sweat, and his knees are hurting. And the reason he's working up a sweat is because he's about 100 pounds overweight. And not that I would know anything about that. But anyway, he finally gets it on. And he's holding the wheel on with one hand, and he reaches around to get the hubcap with the other hand, and he pulls it back, and the lug nuts are missing. And the guy behind him is long gone. Well, he knew right away what happened. The guy that's standing behind him reached down, took the lug nuts, and took off with him. Now what's he going to do? So he's thinking to himself, well, there's no use holding on to this thing, even though I know if I let go of it, it's probably going to fall off the studs. And he stands up, and he's very perplexed, and along comes another resident and says to him, what's wrong, mister? Well, he says, one of your pals stole the lug nuts out of the hubcap, and now I can't get the wheel on. And I've got a doctor's appointment in half an hour that I have to be at. And he was quite upset. Well, the resident says, that's no problem. What do you mean, no problem? Well, yeah, you just take one nut off of the other three wheels and use it to hold your wheel on until you can get to the garage and buy some more nuts. Brilliant, the guy thinks. Why didn't I think of that? He looks up at the resident and he says, I thought you were supposed to be, and the resident knew what he was going to say, and he looks back at him and he says, stupid, right? Well, yeah. Well, the resident says, I may be stupid, but I'm not dumb. Now, that's the punchline. That's what we used to laugh at. We would have laughed until our sides hurt 60 years ago, a joke like that. But now it's not appropriate because we don't tell jokes that make people that are handicapped the brunt of the joke. You know, Milton Berle got away with it, back in the 50s in early television. And it was funny, and hundreds of thousands of people would laugh. We don't do that anymore. So one of the viewers who I haven't heard from in a long time, he used to comment every once in a while, and I kind of got to know a little bit his situation. And he had a son who apparently was mentally challenged, and his son had been given a hard time in school. I can see where if he heard a joke like that, he would be offended. If somebody had made an Alzheimer type joke 5 years ago when my wife was dying from Alzheimer's disease, I would have been offended. Even though those kind of jokes were kind of funny, if the jokes about somebody for being forgetful or something. Anyway, yeah. That's the joke. It's an old joke, so it's not funny. If you were expecting to have a joke that was going to make you just roll on the floor with laughter, well, sorry. Well, you know how Canadians are always saying sorry? Well, sorry. Uh, you know what? Speaking of time, my clock is gonging 9 o'clock right now. And Uncle Frank's watch says 9 o'clock. I don't know if you can read it. I'll get the light just right here. Anyway, it's 9 o'clock this morning. It's time to get back to the model. Okay, last night, after I uploaded yesterday's episode, I took the propeller off of this one. And the idea is it's supposed to go on this smaller one. There is a noticeable difference of the size of the rudder and everything where it has to go in around. So, and I do recall that I could notice the difference in size between the propellers from the little one that I lost compared with this bigger one that I'm going to try and put on. Oh, it's been soaking in a solvent overnight to get the CA glue off of it. Anyway, that's it. Don't worry, that'll evaporate. Okay, and my needle that I put in the pin vise, the needle that I use for applying the glue, I soak it in this stuff too. It's just a CA glue solvent. Nothing special. Now it appears to me that all of the solvent has dissolved off of that prop. And about the joke, I guess I was just concerned that people might think that I was possibly not being sensitive to the plight of the less fortunate, and I did not want to be coming across like that. Anyway, let's get our little needle back into the pin vise and try and figure out how we can fasten this right in there. Now, last night when I was cleaning up the mess that I'd made here with the CA glue, you can see where I also removed the paint. So I think I should take out a few minutes here and just try and fix that up before we put the propeller in, because it'll be a lot easier to paint this now than after the propeller's in place and I'm getting paint all over it too. So, yeah. Okay, my plan here is to just sort of dry brush it on. This is shaken a couple of minutes ago. I'll try and get most of it off. I don't want it to be building up in there too much. Okay, I'll turn it around and do the same on the other side. Just enough to get rid of that powdery look. Okay, we'll let that dry now. And I think in a few minutes we should be able to try and stick our little prop in there somehow. You know what? I think it just fell into place. When we look at it at a different angle, we can see that the hole in the propeller is not going over the shaft. Am I going to end up just knocking this off, or can I move it down somehow? Could be that I didn't pare the shaft down enough last night. There. I think I got it for sure this time. Yeah. Okay, let's not poke at it. Now, the last time I tried this, I used the little applicator here with some CA glue on it, and it turned out to be a real mess. Now, you can see that the shaft is not coming up through the hole on the propeller, even though it is perfectly centered. In other words, I didn't pare down that shaft enough. However, if I was to take some extra thin, and I know that once the extra thin evaporates off of the propeller, you're not going to know it was ever there, and it will have a tendency to possibly dissolve the shaft enough that the propeller will sort of drop down on it. That's my thinking. This is the applicator from the old bottle of Tamiya Extra Thin, the one that we made the sprue goo, which we have to try out yet sometime, don't we? Now, is this going to be a total disaster? Just can't get it level. Maybe from your perspective it looks okay, and now it's come off the... Okay, the hole... See if I could get it to sort of semi-glue with the extra thin, then I can reinforce it with the CA. Now, come on. This is such a small amount of... Okay, why don't we just leave that? I know that the paint is running, but you need a macro lens to see it. Oh. Okay, let's just let it solidify right there. Okay, you know what? I picked it up and I took another look at it, and I do believe we can do better than this. I'm going to take this back out, and I'm going to clean the propeller up, and we're going to do it again. No, it won't come out. Poke it out that way. There we go. Okay, it's on. It's not pretty, but it's on. And what I did was pretty much what I was trying to do while I was poking around there. I did the Tamiya Extra Thin to hold it in place, and then I kind of, well, I know when we look at it up close like this, it looks like I sort of gobbed on the CA, but I tried to be sparing. But at least at a distance, it looks really good. I do think that I'm maybe going to take my little paintbrush and go with the black and try and touch up a few spots there. Although maybe I'm best off just leaving it alone. There's that one little spot right at the bottom of the skeg there, whatever you call that part. Yeah, I could probably do a little touch up there. But you know what? I'm probably best off, quitting while I'm ahead here. And it's already about 25 to 1 here in Winnipeg. And I'd kind of hoped to, be able to mix up some, green and try and make sort of a drab green. And do a little experiment on the seats. So, yeah, I think I'm going to call it quits on the propellers here. Now, the only green that I think I can use that I've got is called a deep green. It's a flat green. I do have another green, but it's a transparent green. Like if you want to paint a green lens for, for a marker on the boat or something. So I'm thinking, why don't I take some of this green here and some of this sky gray and mix them together and see what I get. It might sort of be kind of olive. I don't know. I'm not an artist. An artist would look at these two colors and in their mind they'd know what they're going to end up with. I don't. I kind of think I'm going to end up with sort of a dull, lighter green. That's my guess. And another thing I'm going to try is I've got some warm soapy water here. I know it looks kind of green. Well, that's because I used green dish detergent in there. And I'm going to try and rinse out my pipettes. One of the viewers, in fact, I think more than one of the viewers, mentioned that that's what they do. They just rinse them out in water and then reuse them. So I'm going to give it a try and see what happens. I've already shaken these up in the shaker. Maybe just a little bit more here. Okay, just leave that sit there. As best I know, this is the very first time we're using this one. Yeah, it must be. It's not thinned out yet. At least I think it's the first time. All right, what are we going to end up with here now? Okay, we'll take that to the shaker and shake it up and see what we got. Be back in a minute. Well, that's what we ended up with. It's not very olive, but you know what? It's probably going to be close enough. It could be I thinned this out too much. Well, I can always give it 2 coats. Let's try the other seat. I'll put on the macro lens and get in a little closer. I think I'm going to have to turn it a little bit. Okay, I realize that the cabin is sort of blocking your vision there, but it's a little bit easier for me to get at here. let's just let that dry and see what we got. Now this model here is the Admiral's boat. You can see the V-shaped stern. This one here is the other ones. But I'm showing it because you can see the green in the seats a lot clearer on this one, but I would assume that this is supposed to be the same. Let's just sort of move in nice and close in this area right here. Now the reason I went back to Stefan's book here is because I wanted to see, there's a little hatch right here. Actually it's quite a large hatch. I imagine that that would be opened up and maybe you could get to the motor. I think the motor was in the front, not in the back, but I could be wrong. And then there's a little hatch right here, which is this one right here. And it doesn't appear that they were any different color other than the main deck, so we'll just leave that alone. The only other thing that is really noticeable is the white life preserver, and then there's these vents right here, which are molded onto the deck. I think maybe I could try and paint those very carefully and see what happens. I'm definitely going to do the life preserver. Otherwise, yeah, I think the seats look not too bad. What do you think? Now, I just edited out this last few scenes here, and I was surprised to find out that we're already 27 minutes into this episode. And yeah, so I've got to quickly get this uploaded to YouTube, or we're not going to be ready by a regular time. So, thanks for watching, and all being well, we'll see you tomorrow.